Seventh-day Adventist theology is founded on the sanctuary service. To understand the gospel, how God forgives, how God saves, how God justifies, how Christ intercedes on our behalf, we must study the sanctuary services. Now, there was a special day in the year called the Day of Atonement. On that day, no meat was brought into the most holy place. Are you following me? Or the temple, the tabernacle. No meat was brought in. On other days, 359 days of the year, on some occasions, the priest would bring some flesh into the holy place and consume the flesh and thereby identify with the sinner. Are you with me? By eating the flesh, he identifies. Now, no meat was consumed on the Day of Atonement. Now, the Day of Atonement was held on the 10th day of the 7th month. That began literally October 22, 1844, when Jesus moved from where? The holy place to the most holy and began what we call what? The investigative judgment. Because the Day of Atonement was a day of judgment. So if we take the symbolic and use it to help us understand the literal, as verily as there was no meat consumed on the Day of Atonement, now that we are in the antitypical Day of Atonement, which began October 22, 1844, the ideal lifestyle is a lifestyle without meat. Jesus did not live in the antitypical Day of Atonement. Are you following me? He lived in a period when meat was still taken into the holy place. From October 22, 1844, we moved into the antitypical Day of Judgment, on which no meat was brought into the tabernacle. Tell you something else about meat. Meat, God allowed people to eat meat to shorten their lives. I'll get a quotation, give it to Dr. Jim, he can give it to the church. He allowed them to eat meat to shorten their lives because God has no interest in sinners living long. You see, the longer you live and the more you sin, the more you suffer in the final destruction. So God in his mercy shortened the lives of sinners. One way he did that, the consumption of meat. Another quotation, otherwise says, most of the cancers today are the result of flesh eating. Now, how can you read that and still subsist on meat? You must be suicidal. Are you with me? But the most powerful biblical argument is we are in the antitypical Day of Atonement when no meat was brought into the tabernacle, particularly the most holy place, which is where we are now. No meat. That's the historical period in which we are. We should avoid meat like the plague. Now, let me say this. If you decide to eat just on your birthday some lapu-lapu on your birthday, I am not sending you to hell. Are you with me? But Adam only had one bite of an animal, of an apple, and look what happened. One little thing can lead to something else. The best thing to do is total avoidance if you can. But don't run around people trying to judge them. Because God gives people victory at different stages in their lives. I was in a certain country, you asked about fish, and I went to someone's house for dinner, and I said, I'm a vegetarian. He said, oh, okay, bring him some fish. Bringing some fish. I said, wait a minute. A fish has a face, you know. A fish has parents, you know.